I'm going to show you in this video how to do an iPad 9th generation LCD replacement. This could just as easily be, these are more or less the same steps for an 8th, 7th, 6th, 5th, or Air 1. Yeah, it's basically just the process of pulling the screen off, pulling out the LCD, and then one of the more important things is cleaning and prepping the frame. I'll get into all that stuff later. But yeah, one of the most important things is doing this without cracking the glass. First and foremost, it's not a bad idea to just have a screen on hand just in case. Rather than breaking it and then having to wait longer than necessary. Some of the things that are really going to help you in the process of pulling the screen off are either using a heat mat. I have mine set to 70 degrees Celsius. I also use my heat gun, because this is being used. But you just as easily could use a hair dryer, and more specifically using this thing is called an iSclack. Basically what it does is it just pulls and separates the screen, and then I pull out all the adhesive that you can see right here. Just have a screen for reference. And keep in mind the screen does open like this, so I generally start on this side. And then obviously once you get over, you want to make sure that you don't accidentally tug or tear, because your home button is right here. If you run into any issues and you accidentally tear your home button, I can do home button, flex cable repairs. So I guess just message me. Hopefully it doesn't happen though. If you need the glass or the display, there's a link below. Check out eTech Parts for 5% off your order. Use coupon code ROW2024. So you might be able to see this right here. And then the name of the game at this point is just pulling all the adhesive out. The trickier part is going to be getting past the first two corners. So if you need to, move this on down. It's at this point, I'll mention that it's not a bad idea to have gloves, just because it helps avoid unintentional fingerprints on the LCD or on the underside of the glass. Now this is sort of the next part, but once you get these last two corners, it tends to just open like a book. Once again, our home button is right about here. Our flex cable, as you can see, is right about here. So you don't want to pull up or tug or do anything like that. You don't want to accidentally tug on these flexes right here, which is your touch flex. And then obviously your home button is right here, so you don't want it to droop over too much. And then there are 4 Phillips, 1, 2, 3, 4. And you'll notice they are under these little things. Now, the next part is sort of tricky, sort of not. I'm gonna scoot this down. On the 5th and 6th generation, you don't have this problem. On the 7th, 8th, and 9th generation, they do have this problem, which is that there's a little bit of sort of epoxy or glue or whatever up in these corners. It's technically in all corners, but really the only two that you have a problem with are these top two. Once you get these off in just a sec, basically you just lift up, and then the glue at the bottom right here is not a problem whatsoever. So there's two ways to do this. It helps, once again, if you have a heat pad or if you have a heat gun, you can sort of warm this up. Or what I do is I just take an X-Acto knife and I sort of cut into them, which just weakens them ever so slightly. And then this is a little bit more difficult on the cellular model, but if you can, you basically just want to lift up. Once again, if you're replacing the LCD, I guess this isn't the end of the world if you mess it up. Next, we have 3 Phillips down here, one for the battery. It's very important when you are connecting and disconnecting, specifically the LCD, you want your battery to be disconnected, or in this case, isolated through, as long as the battery is connected to the board. These connectors are essentially hot, is kind of the way to look at it. You don't want to accidentally, you know, short something or damage something. Now from here, you can just lift up. Now I need to, or one of the next steps, assuming that this is an LCD issue and not a board level issue, which we'll find out shortly, is at some point we're gonna have to clean our frame. But for the time being, while our battery isolation tool is in place, I am going to connect a new LCD, pull up my battery isolation tool. So you don't have to lay it perfectly in place. And then we're just going to power on the device. And yep, we clearly had a LCD issue. I wanted to see this thing actually light up because I want to make sure there aren't any issues on the backlight circuit. But as we can see right here, we have full image. And to be honest, it's not a bad idea to just flip this over and then make sure that the touchscreen works, which it does. So that is enough QC for me to feel comfortable moving on to the next step. So once again, we're going to come back with our battery isolation tool, just wiggle it in place, disconnect our LCD. Then we're going to disconnect our screen. You can use a fingernail or you can use a spudger. When one last flex, which is your home button flex. This little thing right here. Next, we have our home button. There's a little piece of film. This is what it is called, a ZIF connector, zero insertion force connector. There's a little flap. So you want to basically just, you want it pointing at the sky. And it doesn't take a whole lot of energy to get these out. But there is a little bit of adhesive right here. So we're going to lift up on this. And then boom, our screen comes out. Now, for the time being, it's not a bad idea to just take your screen and sort of set it over, just so that you don't have a bunch of dust collecting on the underside of your screen. And now we move on to the next couple of steps, which are basically prepping the frame. I go a bit overkill. You don't necessarily need to do everything that I do. At a bare minimum, I would suggest removing all of the adhesive, which you can use an X-Acto blade. This is a 17. You can also use a 17A. Step 2, we're going to use an isopropyl alcohol pad. Now, I actually wring this out and I replace it with 91 or 90. I use 99. You can use 91% alcohol. You want to make sure that you don't get any 70% on your board or the connectors, just to be safe. And this removes as much of the sort of last remnants of adhesive and dirt. Step 3, this might be overkill for some of you. This comes in smaller versions. It comes in almost like a size that's like maybe yay big, and then almost like a Newport you just crush and then you sort of paint on. And it's like basically meant to be one-time use. But what this stuff does is it primes the adhesive, so it just makes the adhesive stickier and it makes the screen less likely to lift or separate over time. So if you went out and got yourself primer, I take the time to prime both the underside of the glass as well as the frame. And this is Tessa tape. This stuff is amazing. As you can see, it's Tessa 61395. I know E-Tech carries this. Once again, link in the description, coupon code ROW2024. I want to say this is 1 or 2 millimeter. I forget. Now, I actually have multiple thicknesses, as you can see. But if you just want to go out and use one, use the thin stuff all the way around, as long as you cleaned and then prepped your frame, that should be fine. So you'll notice on your home button, no, there's not really. Is there? Yeah, there's not really. You just want to nudge it in all the way. We then take our little sticker. If you lost this, don't worry. Battery is disconnected. So once again, this isn't a must, neither is this, but it's just like a thing that you can clean off your LCD with. So this is a different iPad. I guess I got a little smudge on here. That's why these things are great. Boom, gone. Okay, so I like to get it where it is almost closed, and then I like to come through. Honestly, compressed air would also work, if you don't go crazy. And then the astute viewer would see that I still have a strip, which is entirely intentional. So I close it up here. And then we can see that there is still a little gap. And then we pull this out. And then at this point, you want to make sure that your flex, which I don't know if I'll be able to get here. Let's see. Can I don't know if you can see it, but your flex is right here. Your home button is right here. You want to make sure that they don't accidentally get stuck to the adhesive. So usually you can just sort of nudge it in and close it up.